A sports analyst was left hospitalized after being stabbed in the chest Saturday morning. But as new details begin to emerge, investigators are learning the analyst might not have been the victim. Instead, police believe he was the aggressor in the incident.
Once we were provided with additional information about the victim's current medical condition, it became clear to us that additional charges needed to be filed.
We're breaking down what we know so far as the former Jets quarterback is now facing charges of his own for an altercation that left a 69-year-old man battered and fighting for his life in the hospital. This is Inside the Crime presented by Law&Crime. I'm Elizabeth Millner. Police say this incident wasn't a random act of violence, and initially former quarterback Mark Sanchez was believed to be the victim. But now the Fox Sports analyst is facing criminal charges after the victim told police he feared the former football player was going to kill him during the altercation.
I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care where you live. If you come into our city, commit violence, we will use all the tools at our disposal to hold you accountable.
Law&Crime obtained the probable cause affidavit for the incident, and here's what we know so far. According to police, this past Saturday, officers in Indianapolis were dispatched to a local pub after initially getting reports that someone was shot. Court documents say when officers arrived, they made contact with a man who was later identified as Mark Sanchez. Mark Sanchez was suffering from several stab wounds, but then police located another person in an alley nearby. This person, who is only identified in the court document as PT, had a laceration or cut made to his left cheek. EMS rushed both men to the hospital. Now, when officers spoke with the sports analyst to get a statement, he allegedly told them all he could remember was grabbing for a window. According to police, he didn't remember much of what happened. He didn't know who stabbed him or where the stabbing happened. Mark was in Indianapolis for work because he was supposed to call the Colts-Raiders game for Fox Sports. His colleagues acknowledged his absence from the game yesterday. Kurt Menefee saying on Sunday, Friday night in Indianapolis, one of our team members, Mark Sanchez, was involved in an incident that, to be honest, we are still trying to wrap our heads around. At this time, our thoughts and prayers are with Mark and his family and all of those involved. Fox Sports also releasing a statement over the weekend saying Mark Sanchez was injured in Indianapolis on Saturday and is currently recovering in the hospital in stable condition. We are deeply grateful to the medical team for their exceptional care and support. Our thoughts and prayers are with Mark, and we ask that everyone please respect his and his family's privacy during this time. Police went back to the scene to get to the bottom of what happened, and that's where they learned there was surveillance video of the incident. According to court documents, there were two hotels located on both sides of the alley where the incident occurred. One of the detectives went over to the Westin Hotel first to look at the surveillance video, but the video was reportedly in poor quality. When the detective went to the other hotel to review the video footage, they spoke with a man only identified in court documents as BB, who told police he witnessed the altercation. BB allegedly told detectives he saw a larger man wearing a black shirt and another man who was a truck driver interacting with each other. BB at first thought the two men were friends and didn't think much of it. Then he noticed the two men were using their cell phones to record one another. Next thing BB saw was the two men going to the other side of the truck driver's truck. Then he saw the truck driver tumble over while the man in the black shirt was standing over him. According to court documents, BB thought they were just wrestling or something. Then the man in the black shirt ran off while the truck driver stayed near his truck. BB didn't know the full extent of what happened, only realizing it was serious when police started showing up. When detectives went to review the surveillance video at the other hotel, that's when they got a clearer picture of what allegedly happened. According to police, the video from the Indianapolis Marriott showed a man believed to be Mark Sanchez jogging northbound in the alley. That's when Mark runs toward a large box truck that is backed into the loading docks at the Westin Hotel nearby. He allegedly is seen going behind the truck, then reappearing, but still heading towards the same direction. Then something happens. Mark Sanchez, according to what detectives saw in the surveillance video, then reappears heading towards the opposite direction, and he approaches the delivery truck again and approaches the driver's side door. The other man involved is only identified as PT in the court documents. Officers confirming, though, that PT was an employee for a company that specializes in commercial cooking oil recycling and disposal. And more importantly, he was on the job working when this altercation happened. So police say Mark approached the driver's side door of the truck, he opened the door and started talking with PT. This went on for a few minutes. Then PT is seen walking toward the security office doors of the Marriott. According to police, PT was out of the view of the surveillance video, while Mark was seen standing near the front of the truck. Moments later, PT is seen again walking toward the passenger side of the truck, and Mark allegedly follows him. Then PT goes to the driver's side, and Mark allegedly follows right behind him. The two then have some kind of interaction at the driver's side door. Then PT walks toward the front of the truck, Mark Sanchez allegedly following behind him again. Then PT walks towards the back of the truck, and Mark allegedly following him again. Police note then Mark allegedly runs after PT, and the video shows the sports analyst allegedly grabbing PT and throwing him towards the wall of the Westin Hotel. Being a reporter comes with such a busy lifestyle, so I need fuel to keep my energy up throughout the day. But a lot of supplements and bars meant for on-the-go snacking can be a mess with misleading labels and really complicated ingredients. That's why I love what our sponsor Equip is doing. With clean nutrition in mind, they're all about real food first, transparent sourcing, third-party testing, and no toxins or fillers sneaking in. Their Prime Bar isn't just another protein bar. It's a superfood bar that tastes just like dessert. Instead of junky syrups and seed oils, Equip is built with real functional ingredients like 20 grams of pasture-raised protein and dates and honey for natural sweetness. I keep a box on hand when I desperately need a sweet fix, and you can too at equipfoods.com/insidethecrime. You guys are gonna love how clean and delicious these bars are. They're gonna be a household staple for not just you, but your entire family. Plus, Equip is giving my audience an incredible offer. Hit the link right here or go directly to equipfoods.com/insidethecrime and use my promo code insidethecrime to get 20% off your first order or 35% off your first subscription. Thanks to Equip for making the best bar on the market and for partnering with me. Now, it's important to note here what we do know about PT besides that he is a truck driver is that he's also 69 years old. So Mark Sanchez allegedly threw this 69-year-old man against the wall, and then the two just began fighting. According to court documents, the fight continued up against the dumpster, and then the two began fighting towards the middle of the alley. Mark allegedly threw PT to the ground. PT stood up. Mark Sanchez stood there for a brief moment before turning and running north. When detectives spoke with PT, his statement pretty much matched everything the detectives saw on video. He told detectives Mark opened the driver's door. PT got out of the truck. The two were talking because Mark, for some reason, told him he couldn't be at the loading dock, and that Mark spoke to the manager of the hotel even about it. PT told the detectives he didn't have his hearing aids in because his truck is super loud, so he had to lean in to hear what Mark was saying. When PT leaned in to presumably hear what he was saying, he said Mark smelled of alcohol and he was slurring his speech. PT said he was confused, so he went to contact his manager to find out what was going on. Even though sports fans might be able to recognize Mark Sanchez, PT had no idea who he was because initially he thought Mark Sanchez was the manager of the hotel because he appeared well-dressed and well-groomed. Then Mark allegedly climbed into the cab of the truck, leaned over the driver's seat, and looked in towards the middle area of the seats. When PT told Mark he's not allowed inside the truck, Mark came down, but kept repeating that he spoke to the manager and he didn't want PT to replace the fryer oil, which was PT's job. Mark allegedly tried getting in the truck again. PT told him he could not let him in the truck. PT tried calling his manager, but Mark allegedly blocked him from trying to call his boss. PT confirmed to police that Mark wouldn't stop following him as he tried to get his cell phone. When he tried to get it from the passenger side, he was blocked by the former quarterback. Same when he tried to get it from the driver's side. Then Mark allegedly shoved PT, and PT believed he was in physical danger. He reached into his pocket, grabbed his pepper spray, and sprayed him in the face. PT told detectives that the pepper spray appeared to have an effect on Mark Sanchez at first, but then the former football player wiped it off his face and began allegedly advancing towards PT. PT told the detective he thought, "This guy is trying to kill me." So he pulled out a knife, and then Mark Sanchez came at him. PT allegedly struck him 2 or 3 times with the knife. PT told detectives he found himself flying back into the dumpster and falling onto the pallets on the ground. And then when he was on the ground, he said he didn't know what Mark was allegedly physically doing to him. PT didn't know if Mark was punching him or striking him. He only saw Mark's feet coming at him, and he thought this was a matter of life or death. PT was able to get on his feet somehow and stab Mark another time. Mark appeared in shock after that final stab, and he slowly turned away and took off. Gruesome photos shared by PT's family show the aftermath of the altercation. The photos are so gruesome, we can't even show them without blurring a good chunk of it. But you can see him on the hospital bed with a major cut on his left cheek. He has a neck brace on and blood just everywhere. PT's family told Fox 59 he was cut in the fight and it went through his cheek and hit his tongue. Even though Mark was also recovering from his stab wounds in the hospital, he was placed under arrest for battery, unlawful entry of a motor vehicle, and public intoxication. According to police, though, in their most recent press conference, that battery charge could carry a punishment of jail time.
On Saturday, we were presented and submitted a probable cause affidavit from IMPD that kind of contained an initial outline of the allegations that occurred early Friday night, late Friday night, early Saturday morning involving the defendant, Mark Sanchez. We received an amended or an additional probable cause affidavit this morning. Again, this is something that happens in virtually every case here in Marion County. And with that additional information, we have added more serious charges against Mr. Sanchez. At this point in time, we have filed a felony charge, a level 5 felony of battery involving serious bodily injury, which contains a penalty of 1 to 6 years. Once we were provided with additional information about the victim's current medical condition, it became clear to us that additional charges needed to be filed. There's a supporting probable cause affidavit which was filed with the court today, which outlines the additional information which we have received thanks to the effort of IMPD, and that's why we were able to file the charges.
But I want to be clear about this. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care where you live. If you come into our city, commit violence, we will use all the tools at our disposal to hold you accountable. Simple conflicts over things like parking spots, and the list goes on that we've seen over the last several years, these tragic cases that turn violent because someone has a weapon of any sort. But we're lucky that no one's dead right now as a result of this incident that involved a knife. But certainly more people have guns, and we have to be mindful of that as we start and deal with conflict in our community.
1 to 6 years behind bars, that is a lot of time. Let's break down everything we know so far with sports attorney Dan Lust. Dan, thank you so much for joining me today. What's your reaction to this latest development in the Mark Sanchez stabbing case? Because first, when we were learning about this story, we thought that it might have been Mark Sanchez who was the victim, but now it seems like police are believing that he might have been the aggressor.
Yeah, I guess I have two first reactions. The first, right, is when we're all, kind of collectively as a sports audience, just as a human nature story. Mark Sanchez, I'm from New York. He was the leader of the Jets that went to 2 straight AFC Conference Championships. Thoughts and prayers. He's in critical condition after being stabbed. And then I know where I was when I got the notice that he was arrested basically from within the hospital. And then I think the other part that equally is requiring of some kind of pause. We go from misdemeanor charges to today, and now we have felony charges. So this reached a whole other level, and one that, happy to break down with you, but certainly troubling.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mark Sanchez, at least from my recollection of everything, he seemed to always have this very kind of clean, squeaky clean image. But are you surprised by his alleged behavior? Because reading those court documents, it seems like he was just kind of really agitating towards this truck driver who was just trying to do his job.
I mean, yes. And to put it bluntly, it's not just like mine and your recollection of who he is from the sides. You don't get an NFL broadcasting job if you have any issues, right? And as of today, and we'll see if there's a statement from Fox Sports the next couple of days, but Mark Sanchez was an NFL broadcaster. He had a successful NFL career, by no means a Hall of Famer, didn't win a Super Bowl. It's not like he was a Tom Brady level talent. But he got to this level of Fox Sports because he's an affable personality. He's likable. He's presentable. And if you have any kind of bad things in your history, it's very hard to get those jobs. So it's not me nor you. It's Fox Sports, a multi-billion-dollar, studio that wants to have him as a representative of their product. And mind you, he was in Indianapolis to call the game, which was the next day. So you don't put someone on the road like that you think has issues. On a whole host of levels, it's a very surprising development.
And just seeing the photos of the victim were just so gruesome. And, we see murder victims all the time. We see very gruesome crime scene photos every single day. But because it's a living victim, it's a 69-year-old man who, by what we could see and what we could tell from court documents, was acting in self-defense. Seeing him in that hospital bed with a neck brace on, a giant cut on his face, blood just everywhere. It was very, very gruesome. We can't even show the videos without putting a blur on it. But what's your reaction to everything that the victim went through during this altercation?
At least at this stage, right? There's a lot of rumors, what you're hearing, what you're not hearing. Originally, I think there was some reports that it was an Uber Eats driver, a DoorDash driver, and then we find out that it's a 69-year-old truck driver who was trying to get oil from the kitchen. There's some reports also that this individual had hearing aids, so it's not just a normal 69-year-old individual. It's someone that maybe is not at full capacity. So yeah, it's certainly alarming. And I guess to your previous question, there are certainly some indications from what's been released by the authorities that at least Mark Sanchez is saying his recollection is blurry. He might have blacked out, and there's certainly comments from this driver that Mr. Sanchez had an odor that seemed to be from someone that had consumed a lot of alcohol. And I believe where he was found, at least after or nearby, was in a bar. So, things seems to be lining up as this is something that Mark Sanchez wouldn't normally do. I think we can probably all agree to that. And when you infuse alcohol, you're on the road, it's just it's an unfortunate set of circumstances. But yeah, I've unfortunately seen the pictures. And they have to be serious to rise to the level of arresting someone in their hospital bed with 3 stab wounds. And now the next day, after reviewing the footage further, upping those to felony charges. So yeah, it had to be pretty serious. And I think that the photo does match that.
Yeah, and just looking at the charges that Mark Sanchez is currently facing as we're recording this story right now, and that being battery charge, which could carry that punishment of 1 to 6 years. In terms of where this case could go down the line, do you think it's a possibility that Mark Sanchez could possibly be facing that jail or prison time?
I'll phrase it this way. It's week 5 of the NFL season. I thought up until today's developments of this upping of the charges that he could be back in a booth by the end of the season, the next couple months. I don't think that any longer. If it's certainly a long shot. Do we think he could be facing prison time? It's to the extent of the victim's injuries, right? If there's a full recovery made, maybe it's a little bit different, but at least as of now, right, this looks and it just put it this way, the fact that you can't show the images without blurring them out speaks volumes about how significant this was. And then, from reports which seem to be backed by witnesses, that Mark Sanchez was the aggressor and continued pursuing this individual and really necessitating, at least from at least the charges being levied, some real intensive self-defense measures. So, yeah, to the extent all of that is proven, I certainly can see this progressing in the court.
And in terms of what police were saying, even during that press conference, that they were lucky Mark Sanchez even kind of made it out alive. Both victims could have made it out alive because there could have been that possibility that the person that we know as PT by court documents could have had a gun instead of a knife, that this could have really been a deadly altercation. What's your reaction to police saying that this could have ended off far worse and even now it ended pretty badly, but in terms of how bad it could have gotten, what's your reaction?
Well, just think about we're still piecing some of the stuff together, but we know of at least 2 places where at least portions of this incident occurred. We knew in an alley, right? How close is an alley, right? You're one-on-one. It's not like you're in an open field, right? And the other part, at least as we can tell from Mark Sanchez's charges, is that at least at some portion of the events, he seemed to be actually in the cab of this truck. So those are 2 very close quarters. And yeah, those stabs at that close of a range with nowhere else to go, it's not a shock to anyone that those were potentially fatal stabs and required Mr. Sanchez to be hospitalized. But yeah, certainly you could have maybe, and we'll find out at some point, you could just be inches away from hitting an artery or worse. But yeah, that doesn't shock me at all. But again, this wasn't just being in a field or a park or some type of long exposure. This is seemingly 2 very close quarters where these stabbings occurred.
And how important was that surveillance video to detectives when they were trying to piece together what had happened? Because, again, initially people believed that Mark Sanchez was the victim of just a random, brutal attack. But I think that surveillance video really helped kind of piece together what actually happened.
Yeah, I think it's the surveillance. Certainly, I think that's incredibly, incredibly helpful. There seemed to be at least one, bystander that happened to see some, but not all. He wasn't really sure. Yeah, credit to the authorities here for piecing this together rather quickly. I just remember again where I was when I saw, that he had been charged, and that
Yeah.
certainly tells you that this was not what people I think initially thought it to be. And Mark Sanchez, to your initial point, is a beloved figure in football circles.
Yeah.
So this is certainly out of character. So yeah, by all means, this checks all the boxes of just an incredibly unique and interesting story that I'm obviously watching very closely.
And in terms of Mark Sanchez's job, I mean, right now he is still at Fox Sports, but in terms of that possibly changing, do you think that that could be a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, and I certainly I work in the football space very closely. We say it's you have a right. It's not your privilege to work to be a professional athlete or same on the broadcasting side. For as many players that make it to the NFL level every year, even fewer of those have a post-playing career in the broadcast booth.
Right.
And just as quickly as they replaced Mark Sanchez on the broadcast for this past Sunday's game, they could certainly replace him on a more permanent level. We talk and broadcast about the A team, the B team, the C team, the D team. I hate to use a football analogy here, but it's kind of next man up, right? No one is guaranteed their role. No one is guaranteed full-time employment as a broadcaster. And if you do one thing that's, we'll say, potentially better, results in criminal charges, that could cost you the rest of your career. If you do one thing that rises to a felony charge when there's a victim who's 69 years old,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a completely different tier of, we'll say, a minor infraction. So again, I don't want to wish ill upon anybody, but I would be very surprised if he's on the air again this year. And we'll see about moving forward. But these are incredibly serious charges and a victim that's still recovering in the hospital.
Absolutely. And we'll continue to follow this very closely as more details will presumably come out. I want to thank you so much for being on with us, Dan. I really appreciate your time today and your insight into this case.
My pleasure. Anytime.
As of this recording, Mark Sanchez has yet to release a public statement about his arrest and subsequent charges. Online records show he's currently not in jail custody. He's reportedly still in the hospital, but in stable condition. We'll continue to keep an eye on this case as we get more developments. But thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Inside the Crime. I'm Elizabeth Millner.